Hello, guys and girls, I guess. Let me. Whoa, that made you guys a little sick. Uh, Trying to make a little room here to make sure that we get everything good to go before all of our friends come. All right, guys. You're probably going to be throwing up in a minute from all the little. Just trying to keep everything in line here so we can let everybody kind of roll in. And let's see. Oh, here we go. Good deal. All right, guys. A lot of things we're going to go over tonight. I actually do have a lot to go over tonight. I know I say that a lot, and I usually just sit here and jibber jabber for a little while. So I have a bunch of stuff to go over. And let's see here. All right, now I'm to the chat room here. So let me do our normal shout out to you guys. Let's see. The very first one in here is probably not the best way to get attention. Mobile Mobber says, sub to me, please. You can't see that, but I can. No, that's not the way it works. At least join the conversation first. And then maybe you can talk to some of the people and ask them to sub. So, Richard Portell is here. Richard, nice to see you again. Ryan Westall's here. Andrew Dalton Ray. Hey, Andrew, how are you? Keith Gregory. Hi, Keith. 666 Baby. Gulf City Freedom. Max Jenner, Citizen Soldier. Jay Griff is here. What's going on, dude? Jay Griff, I need to get you to text me or whichever. Private message me, however you want to do it, and let me know what t-shirt size that you wear. So if you would do that, I'd sure appreciate that, man. Archangel's here. What's up, man? Yeah, it sounds like you said you're watching me and Hank Strange. I guess Hank and I are on at the same time. I actually exchanged some emails with Hank's wife earlier this week, maybe Wednesday, wanting me to come on their show. Gosh, maybe in July, something like that. So maybe doing a combination of shows where I go on his, which actually I think we have more followers here, so maybe we might do it the other way. But either way, where we combine our shows for one Friday night and do that. That might be kind of cool. Matthew Turner, what's up, man? Big Mo, what's going on? 2326 Texas, what's going on, dude? Keith Gregory, how are you? I'm going to get right into a lot of the stuff that I'm going over tonight. Like I said, I got a bunch of stuff to go over. Real quick, some new products that I'm going to be working on with some videos coming up. Not the pistol, and actually not the optic either. But this is one of my older. I say older. It's the Smith & Wesson M&P Pro Series. It's the Core Pro Series pistol. A very nice pistol, but as you can see, it was made for the RMR sight. And this is one of my Leupold Delta points. And I'm going to be doing a pretty cool little. These things have gained in big time in popularity. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be doing a video on, I guess you could say, proper use, but also what happens if you can't see. If somebody's carrying one of these things for self-defense, concealed carry, and maybe the battery goes out or the thing gets broken, busted, dirty, whatever. I'm going to be talking about some techniques that I've kind of been working on that. So it's going to be kind of interesting there. That's a video that'll be coming up very soon. This is kind of cool. I'm actually kind of excited about this. Rarely do I get excited about flip-up sights, but I wanted to put, believe it or not, sometimes I use AR pistols. That's my truck gun. And I like iron sights on my truck gun, if you know what I mean. I'm not, as much as I like red dots, and I'm really a big fan of the different red dots, including the RMRs and all that, I'm more of a bigger fan, I guess you could say, of sights that I don't have to hope that my battery hasn't run out, or I don't have to hope that the lens is not cloudy or fogged up because it's in my vehicle. I like iron sights. I really do. Even though they're not my first choice going to the range, they're definitely my first choice when it's a go-to, a stuff hit the fan type thing. What I like about these are Mepro sights. And you're not going to be able to see this. I'll actually do this in my video review of these. But they actually have illuminated marks on the sights themselves. The front post is lit up. and right here on either side of this aperture is lit up. Very cool. I've actually took these things out at night and looked at them. Very cool, man. This is something that's pretty neat. So I'm excited. We're going to do something on that. I have some friends of ours. You may already be familiar with the RIP round. Somebody said that. I don't know why my stuff is. Let's see if I can change it here. No, I'm not going to be able to change it. Somebody had said that the my text and everything was backwards on my live streams. I don't know why that is. I didn't change anything. I didn't change any settings. But anyway, the G2 Research guys have the original RIP round. This is their shotgun round. This is a mean looking round. I'm a big time shotgun guy anyway. I know I like all guns, but I'm a huge fan of shotguns. Look at that slug. This is a slug in there. Look how that thing is milled, CNC machined. That's an evil looking slug right there. It will destroy a rifled barrel. You cannot shoot it with a choke. It also destroy and hurt your shotgun. So there's some things you got to follow, some rules you got to follow to shoot this thing. But anyway, that's the G2 Research RIP round in a 12 gauge slug. And I don't mind telling you, I'm excited about that. That's going to be cool. What else do I have before we get into my long diatribe where I'm probably going to talk for too long? New t-shirt. If you guys can't see that, which again, the text might be backwards, it says untreadable. And that's a cool new t-shirt that we have out. I'm excited about this thing. To me, this kind of exemplifies what we're looking at. It takes, of course, the old, tried and true, don't tread on me. Throws our logo in there, the Legally on America logo down at the bottom, and just makes it kind of fun with being untreadable. So if you are wearing this shirt, you are untreadable. Nobody will tread on you, right? Pretty cool. I'm excited about that. I just got those in today. So those will be worn tomorrow. I'll be wearing one. Let's see. Looking at you guys. Oh, Mr. FNH, also, if you don't mind, if you could send me your t-shirt size, private message me, however you want to do that. Just send me your t-shirt size. Oh, an address. I need your address as well. Let me see. Gulf City Freedom, Matthew Turner, Max Jenner. Rest. I'm just looking at the rest of you guys that might have come strolling in here that I hadn't mentioned anything, your name yet. Razor JB. Let's see. God and Guns. Okay, guys. One of the main things that I'm going to be talking about tonight, and I'm actually going to put a pretty detailed video out about this. Not sure if you guys have seen one of the latest stories that's come out. It is pretty interesting. America's doctors call for strongest gun control measures. It's a CNN article. I know that's the fake news channel, but they are reporting on something that actually happened. So I can kind of discern it for myself. I mean, it obviously has the normal anti-gun slant to it, but at the same time, there are some facts in here that I think it's worth talking about. Well, their annual meeting was held in Chicago. What a great place to talk about gun control. And some of the things talked about were by Dr. David Barb, who's from Missouri, the home of the actually birthplace of the safe space, if you remember. They talk about a bunch of stuff. They say how emergency rooms across the country, the carnage of gun violence has become too routine of experience. It doesn't have to be this way, and we urge lawmakers to act. Let me go through some of the things that they're actually calling for. There's several policies, and it's kind of weird how they do this. They talk about having about a dozen policies, but they roll 2 or 3 items into each policy. So really it's about 30 different policies that they're looking for. They are calling for a ban on assault-style weapons. Assault-type weapons. I get their terminology mixed up so much because it's so stupid and convoluted. Again, a call for banning all assault-type weapons, AR-15s, AK-47s, black guns that look extremely scary. They call for a ban on bump stocks and related devices. You know what that means? Anytime you name a specific device and you put a related device, that is so open-ended that anything could be included in that. A can of gun oil could be included as a related device because it increases the rate of fire, just like a bump stock might. And we still don't know what the rate of fire is, the standard rate of fire. So that's something I'm still waiting on. Anyway, also calls for a ban on high capacity magazines, which we know what that really means. Even though there is no such thing as a high capacity magazine, what they are essentially talking about is a magazine that holds more than 10 rounds. Now, you and I both know that if you give them the 30 round magazines, the next, and then we accept the fact that we're going to only have 10 round magazines, then they'll start calling a 10 round magazine a high capacity magazine, and they'll want a 5 round magazine. Then when we give in and let them have the 10 round magazines and we say, okay, 5 is enough, then they're going to say you only need 1 bullet. A 5 round magazine is high capacity. It never stops. So let's not go down that rabbit hole. And armor piercing bullets. So just in bullet number 1, they're calling for a ban on assault weapons, bump stocks, related devices. I'll leave that in the same category. High capacity magazines and armor piercing bullets. So they're saying that's 1 item. It's 4 items that they're calling for. Let's see here. They're opposing arming of teachers in schools. Naturally, they would because they're anti-gun, and they are in favor of keeping schools gun-free zones. I'd love to hear their argument on keeping a school as a gun-free zone. I just want to hear that argument, right? They also want to require, this is where it gets kind of good. They want to require all gun owners to complete a gun safety course. And check this out. They include this in the same item too, like it's 1 bullet item, okay? So they want all gun owners, if you're purchasing a gun, not purchasing one, if you're a gun owner, period. They want you to complete a gun safety course, and they want you to register all firearms. Those two are not even related. So you want me to take a gun safety course and you want me to register all of my firearms. That's 2 separate items. Neither one of them flies with me. I don't need a gun safety course. Don't give me that driving test thing. It's the same as driving. I'm not going to get into that argument. Cars and guns are totally different. They're regulated differently. They're managed differently. They're bought differently. Believe me, cars are not controlled like guns are in terms of the government, and they're not regulated like the government regulates our guns. They want to increase the federal age limit for all firearms, meaning shotguns as well as long guns and pistols. And I'm sorry, let me split this up because again, it's 2 separate items. They want to increase the federal age limit for all firearms, and they want to increase the federal age limit for ammunition, both of those from 18 to 21. So now they want you to be 21 years old to not only buy even a shotgun, but they also want you to be 21 years old to go buy shotgun shells. So if you hunt for your food, like some people actually might, now you're going to need to wait till you're 21 before you can actually do that. Opposing federal laws that allow concealed carry permits to cross state lines. Of course they oppose that. They support laws that prohibit individuals who are under domestic violence restraining orders or who are convicted of a misdemeanor domestic violence crime or stalking from possessing or purchasing firearms. That's a flawed statement right there. I actually support a portion of that. I do support anyone who's convicted of misdemeanor domestic violence crime from having to go through a process to determine whether or not you should or shouldn't have guns. Because I do believe that if you look at you can talk to law enforcement, they'll tell you this, that a lot of your murders out there and violence with guns that may, not even with guns, violence period, it's domestic. So if you're already convicted, and again, it's important that I point out that it's not just if you have a restraining order against you, because anybody can get mad at me today. My neighbor can get mad at me today and file a restraining order against me. That's not grounds to take my gun. There's no due process that took place there. But if you are convicted of these types of infringements against, your wife, your kid, girlfriend, whatever, totally different story. I say at that point, somebody needs to talk to somebody. They want to require, and again, I do not support the restraining order part. I'm sorry, I just don't. I'm not saying that everybody on restraining orders is innocent. What I'm saying is it's too easy to put restraining orders on somebody and all of a sudden you take their guns away. No, that's not the way the process is supposed to work. We do have due process. Yes, there are some bad people out there, but good people do not need to be infringed, have their own Second Amendment rights infringed upon simply because of a hunch or because of vindictive girlfriend or wife, husband, boyfriend, or whatever. So I'm totally against that, and I always will be. That's not right. You're not going to take due process out of this and make me feel good about it. Requiring that domestic violence restraining orders and gun violence restraining orders be entered into the NICS system. Um, you know, there you go again. A restraining order that may not be accurate and may not be truthful should not prevent someone from buying or purchasing a gun. So no, I'm totally against that. Um, these are the kind of things that worry me because they give the impression of being the common sense that the left always likes to use, because the wording sounds nice and fluffy. It sounds like you could curl up in it and just kind of nap, like be real warm. No, that's a total infringement. Again, no due process is taking place. You could go file a domestic restraining order, again, against your neighbor, who you feel like is, you can go tell a judge or someone that I think that guy might hurt me, and then get a restraining order, and all of a sudden my neighbor, I can make someone go take all the guns, either take the guns from my neighbor or prevent him from purchasing another one. You know what? What if, and let me just mention this, what if I'm an asshole? And excuse me, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cuss, because I said I wouldn't do that anymore because sometimes we have children on here. What if I'm a jerk and I do want to do my neighbor harm? I want to do my neighbor harm. So I'm slick about it. I call and I file a restraining order against my neighbor. Eventually and essentially his guns are taken from him. He cannot buy any other ones. Now I know he's disarmed. Now I'll go kick his door in and beat the crap out of him or do whatever I want to do. Right? That's not a stretch. If you know that you can disarm somebody, what better way to do it than to utilize the law to legally disarm them and then do whatever harm you might want to do against them? Can you imagine how fast rapes and other things, assaults would take place, how fast they would rise in this country? This is a slippery slope we do not need to go down. Allowing family members and partners and law enforcement officials to petition courts for gun removal from individuals considered at high risk for violence. Again, no due process. Again, my neighbor goes and tells the police, or a judge petitions a judge to say, I think Paul is a risk. What are the words they use? I think Paul is considered a high risk for violence. Now, he can make up anything he wants. Again, think about domestic issues. How many lies are told whenever there's domestic disputes that take place from both sides? I know that there's some embellishments. Usually one side is embellishing more than the other, but in a lot of cases, both sides are embellishing. So now you have somebody who can go lie on somebody else and say, I really think they're going to be a high risk to themselves or my kids because they said they wanted to kill themselves and they wanted to kill all of my kids too. Oh, well, man, we got to take his guns away. So now you take somebody's guns away and somebody's sitting over here in the corner giggling, laughing because they got their way based on total falsities. That's a slippery slope, guys. I'm not okay with that. Let's see. Again, guys, we're just running over this stuff briefly, mainly because I'm going to be going over this in great detail in a video that I'm going to be putting out. Okay, I want to talk a little bit now about, let me find my page here. This, what we just talked about, again, was what the American Medical Association wants all of us to do. And remember, we put these guys, I say we, when I say we, I don't mean me, because I have friends who are doctors and I have a lot of respect for them, but the AMA I have no respect for because it's loaded with liberals and the numbers that they used to have fallen way, when I say way down, I'm talking about over 50%, and maybe more than that. I'll look here in a second. But it's because all the good people have gotten out. And it's at this point, it's a bunch of the idiots because they realize the AMA is a liberal organization now. So I don't put hardly any faith in what they say, want to do, or whatever. But a lot of people do. Think about it. When people go to the doctor, they put these doctors up on pedestals like they're kind of quasi-gods, like a sub-god, because they understand what's going on with your body and your problems that you have, the issues you have physically. And while they might be lying a little bit, because sometimes they don't know what they're really talking about, you think they do, because you're looking at that diploma on the wall and you're thinking, man, this guy's smart, he knows what he's talking about, and you immediately give them credibility. Whether they've earned it or not, you immediately give them credibility. So it's dangerous whenever they come out with things like this, because some people are so easily led and ignorant that they immediately assume, well, they're doctors, they must be right. Surely we have to follow those because these guys, because the doctors are, why would they lie to us? They're not politically motivated. They're just trying to help people. Bull crap. A couple of facts here about the American Medical Association. Let me explain some of this to you. Their estimated membership varies from 17 to 29% of all doctors. Okay, let's just use that higher number. So the AMA is only 29% of doctors in the whole United States. That means that 71% of doctors are not a part of the AMA and do not agree with all of these recommendations. So most of the doctors in the country don't agree with them. Most of the doctors in the country elect to not be in the AMA because they don't agree with the things that they put forward, right? So only 29% of the whole doctors, all the doctors in America, side with these guys, okay? Now, you might be thinking, well, what's the big deal? Maybe they've always had that kind of membership. No, they used to have their highest rate of membership, and I don't have a year here, was 90%. Used to be 90% of the doctors in America were in the American Medical Association. 90%. Now it's 29%. You tell me why, right? It's not because they don't have time to be in this organization. I doubt it's because it costs too much money, because they are doctors and can afford that. It's because it's a bunch of crap. It's a bunch of BS that they don't side with. They don't back this. They don't agree with it. All the good doctors are probably saying, screw that. That's stupid. I don't back that. In fact, I would be willing to bet that whenever this latest thing came out by CNN on the AMA and some of the things that they actually support that are anti-gun, I'll bet you their membership drops even more, because more of these guys are going to look at this who are members now and say, I'm not a part of this, and they get out of it. So look for that 17 to 29% of all doctors to go down after this particular study, this anti-gun politically motivated study comes out. Well, here's a reason why. Part of the decline has been attributed to AMA's turn as an increasingly political and activist organization. When people go to be a doctor, in many cases, they're not trying to enter and join a political activist group. And it seems as though whenever you pay your dues and you become a member of the AMA, that you are becoming an activist group, at least being a member in it. Let's see. This is some stuff that I want you to know, and I'll put more of this in my video about this whole story right here. Let's see. AMA has lost a significant amount of credibility in recent years. Their credibility is garbage right now. The American Medical Association has offered, get this, they have offered their seal of approval to various products and drugs, despite the fact that the organization has no capacity to test drugs. So the AMA, who does not test things, does not run tests on things, it's just something that they hear about, know about, are told about, or whatever, that they are all of a sudden, with no reason whatsoever, putting a seal of approval on something in order to sell it so they can get paid. Let's see. Instead, its doctors reaped advertising fees from these products to feature products in AMA publications. So they're using their seal of approval, which means nothing. That's like my seal of approval. I put my seal of approval on this gun. What does it mean? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. I'm no more qualified to put a seal of approval on that gun than Mickey Mouse is. Now these guys are over here saying that they're putting a seal of approval on drugs that they are not testing. Now, you might use the argument, well, they're doctors. They use those drugs. Not necessarily. And I don't care if you use them or not. It's still not like a laboratory test. It's still not like some kind of a test where you have a double blind with a placebo, a sugar pill, or something like that. It's still not a qualified test. You cannot test things. You cannot. That's like me not testing a gun. I haven't even shot this thing yet. And I go to you guys and say, this is one of the finest shooting guns out there. I love the way this gun handles. Very low recoil. I recommend everyone out there get one. Paul, have you shot one? No, I have not, but I put my seal of approval on this gun. It's the same thing. If I have not run that gun and I have not personally tested that gun, I have no business giving a seal of approval to it. That's what these guys are doing. They're putting a seal of approval on things that they're getting a paycheck from. That would be like me approving, putting my seal of approval on this gun, not shooting it, but cashing that check from Smith & Wesson tomorrow after I tell you guys that. No, that's not legitimate, guys. That's not the way it works. It's not the way it's supposed to work. Let's see. Again, I'll be going through a whole lot more of that. And some of this might bore you guys when I put my video together because some of it's going to be kind of repetitive of what I'm going over here. These are just notes that I've printed out today, and I've been reading up on this so I can put my video together. Let's see. Interesting now. Now, what I did, and this is, again, I don't want to keep repeating myself. This will be in my video that I put together, guys. Let's see here. Oh, I want to show something real quick. Okay, let me show you this chart. You know how we keep hearing that from other people? I pulled up some gun stats. I mean, some death stats for guns. You know how you keep hearing everybody on the left say that I've put forth my argument that the reason why we have so many deaths and attacks and violence in America is because we're over-medicating people. We're treating the bullied kids, the ones that are being bullied, we're treating them like the bullies. In other words, we won't let them retaliate. We won't let them defend themselves. Because if they do defend themselves, even though it's obvious, and if a teacher or an authoritative figure sees a child being bullied and the kid smacks the bully in the face, the kid that retaliated, defended himself, is treated with expulsion or suspension just like the bully. So that's part of the problem, because we're suppressing that. We're not letting these kids defend themselves, so we're letting the bullies get away with it, which makes the bullying get even worse because it just continues to happen. I've attributed that to violence, the bullied kids. I've attributed the over-medication of kids, and I've attributed the promotion of fatherless homes in America to what our gun violence is. When I get people out there that tell me that they will tell me that there are just as many homicides and whatnot, that other countries have just as many over-medicated kids, all the same problems exist in those countries, and when I mention that we have a huge number of suicides, which is again directly attributed to the bullying, maybe even the abandonment issues of fatherless homes, and of course definitely the over-medication. When I mention all of that and say, why are our suicides so high? It's because of this, not because of guns. A gun is not convincing a person to kill themselves. It's because they're over-medicated, they're bullied, and they're an outcast. Well, those same people tell me that that's bull crap. Even though most of our suicide or our deaths are suicides, they will tell me that the rest of the countries out there that are first world countries, if you will, like us, have just as many suicides. That is not true. That is totally not true. This chart actually explains it. And what's funny is, this is a chart that they put together. The left put this together. If you can or cannot see this, if you look, this bar right here on the bottom is us, okay? This is America. Look at this right here. It's separated right here. It's red on the bottom, but it's separated. So from here on back, those are unintentional suicides. I say unintentional, it's suicides. From here all the way back to here. So the majority of our gun-related deaths are suicides. Now these are homicides. Now what they did not do is they did not break these down in terms of gang-related, which the majority of these are gang-related. We have a very small percentage that might wind up over here that are actually straight-up homicides that are not gang-related or suicide-related. But again, back to this. From here back, that's all suicides. You want to sit here and tell me that we have the same amount of suicides in other countries? We have more suicides than any of these other countries have in total gun deaths. In absolute total gun death. The next in line is Finland. We have more suicides at 66. Double. We have double the suicides that they have in all gun deaths, period. At 33, actually 36. So we have almost double. It's not quite double. 72 would be double. So again, the left puts out their own chart to make some kind of an argument, but they're wrong in their own defense. Because again, they want to say, oh, there's just as many suicides in other countries as there are. No, there's not. This proves that it's not. So clearly they're wrong, and it's funny how they pick and choose what numbers they want to use to make an argument. And it's obvious when they put their own numbers out that they're wrong. But you can't call them on that, because then they say, well, their next argument is that you're being racist. It's usually it's the race card is usually what's thrown up. Racist, or you're just insensitive, or you want children to die. That's what you hear. You want children to die. That's the one they like. Okay, this next thing that I put together, which is where I'm going with my video that I put together on the AMA. Interesting that I'm going to use some cliches here. Interesting that the American Medical Association would come out with both barrels loaded, get that, against the gun industry, against the gun community, period. Because ironically enough, guns are responsible, and let's just say people who use guns, because I don't like to say guns are responsible for this many deaths, because guns don't create deaths, but guns are used in 33,000 deaths in the United States a year. 33,000. You want to know how many medical malpractice deaths there are a year? Let's try this. 250,000 medical malpractice deaths a year. You might not have heard me. Maybe you didn't hear that. There are 250,000 medical malpractice deaths a year compared to 33,000 deaths that involve a gun. That's a big difference. I got this, you'll notice, from the Johns Hopkins University Medicine Department. It's not like this is from the NRA's website, guys. This is some real stuff. 10% of all U.S. deaths are now due to medical error. 10%. Medical errors are under-recognized causes of death. Absolutely it is. It's not usually included in numbers. How often do you see it in numbers? You usually will see heart disease, respiratory failure, guns, various things like that, but very seldom do you see medical malpractice thrown in there. You know why? Because in many cases, if a person, say they have cancer, that's one of them also. Let's say a person has cancer. They go to the doctor, and let's say they are misdiagnosed and they die. You know what their cause of death is listed as? Whatever the ailment is that killed them. So if the doctor, and I'm just using this randomly because clearly this is probably not the case. Let's say a person has cancer and a doctor doesn't catch that cancer, and the doctor misdiagnoses them and misses the cancer and thinks the person has, I don't know, a headache. Maybe the doctor thinks they have a headache. And the person dies of brain cancer. Well, they don't list that as medical malpractice, even though it is. The doctor missed it, and the person died of what the doctor was supposed to be qualified in order to find. They list that as cancer. So that person is quantified under a list of cancer. So that's why these numbers are kind of skewed, because medical malpractice is kind of like looked at as a secondary way. And I mean, I can't dispute this, but it's kind of looked at as a secondary way of a cause of death. Again, it's hard to argue that point, because if the person really did legitimately die of cancer, then it probably should be captured there, because then it skews the cancer numbers if you take it out of cancer and put it in medical malpractice. So you see what I mean? Sometimes those numbers are skewed, and I kind of support why they're skewed, because it probably needs to go what really killed the person. Even though somebody screwed up and misdiagnosed it, it still should go in the proper category of what killed the person. But what I think needs to happen is you need to take asterisks and put next to every single cause of death, and put how many of those causes of death involved medical malpractice, so that we can capture it in the right bucket that it belongs in, but at the same time show that there's a very large percentage of these people who might have died of this particular ailment that might belong in medical malpractice also. That's a very important thing, because if not, we're letting these doctors off the hook that are causing all these deaths out there and allowing these deaths to take place because they're missing things, misdiagnosing things, or just flat out doing things wrong in surgery and whatnot. So let me see some of the other numbers that blew my mind here. Okay, here we go. Here's a little bit of a breakdown of the causes of death in a few things. And again, I don't know how they could have broken these numbers out without taking one number from another one. But 611 people died. This is the number one cause of death is heart disease. 611,000 people died of heart disease. Number two, 584,000 people died of cancer. The number three is medical malpractice. And number four is chronic respiratory disease. 149,000 people died of chronic respiratory disease. So we have heart disease, cancer, medical malpractice, and respiratory disease. If that ain't eye-opening, I don't know what is. How in the world can a group of representing only 29% of the doctors, and maybe they can explain this medically, but how can they grow testicles big enough to have that kind of nerve to come out and talk about guns when they are wiping off 250,000 people a year in malpractice? Now, I'm not attacking the medical industry because, again, there's 71% of doctors out there that don't belong to this hack organization. And I know some physicians, I know some nurse practitioners, very good friends of mine, all good people. None of the people I know that are in the, actually, this is the honest to God truth. Locally here in Louisiana, none of the medical people that I know are anti-gun. None of them. Now, I'm not saying none of them are in the American Medical Association. They very well could be. They just may pay dues. And you know what? It's like one of those things when you belong to an organization, especially when you're young and you're a new doctor, it might be kind of a prestigious thing. I'm sure they give you this little thing to print out and put on your wall to say that you are a member of the American Medical Association. So when you're a new doctor, it probably looks good to you. And let's face it, some of the new doctors are probably stupid because they're young liberals that are just now being indoctrinated in college. So they may feel like they belong in this organization. It might be something they truly do align themselves with. But I truly believe that smarter people are not radical anti-gun leftists. I truly believe that. I think that smart people in general, conservative ways, and I don't mean to say this politically, I don't mean it in a political nature, I mean just from social issues, let's just say that. I think socially conservative people tend to be smarter people than socially liberal people. So I see that because it looks like they have a screw loose. I really believe that people who are truly conservative, and again, I'm not aligning that with Republican because there's a lot of stupid Republicans. Most of them are in Washington, D.C. I think conservative people end up being, you find that they're smarter. They're more rational, they have more common sense. So I don't think those people are aligning themselves with the AMA anymore. So when these doctors are coming out, yeah, I think some feel the pressure to be in the AMA, again, because it's kind of a prestige thing. But I think a lot of them are just choosing not to be, and the ones are not re-upping whenever they see these organizations do stuff like this. So again, I'm going to be putting my video out. It's actually going to be a pretty interesting video. I'm really kind of blown away. I like numbers. Looking at these numbers, it just blows my mind to see that these guys can have the gall and the audacity to come out, again, with both barrels blazing, talking about the gun industry and all these things that they recommend that we do in the gun industry because they're tired of dealing with bullet wounds in there. You know, why aren't they talking about it? These are the same doctors who are over-medicating our kids. These are the people writing prescriptions. You know what, this opioid epidemic we keep hearing about? Anyone heard about that? Anyone heard about the opioid? Yeah, it's something that's going on out there that people are dying from every single day. Gun people are not the ones writing prescriptions for all the people dying from opioids and from all the people that are killing people that are on these medicated drugs that are mood-altering drugs. It's not us writing those prescriptions. Those prescriptions are written by this 29% of people in the American Medical Association. That's who's writing these prescriptions. And they have the nerve to turn around and say that we are the problem, and the guns that we have, that we've bought legally, that we utilize legally, that we use to protect ourselves and our families, that those things are the problem and that we need to get a handle on those things. Meanwhile, they say that and then they turn around and write another 100 prescriptions that day for kids who don't need medication and for opioids so somebody can go home with a jug of pain pills about this big. These people are eating pain medication like Skittles out there. And these doctors, you don't get those opioids, and they're so easy to get from doctors. You can buy some illegally, of course you can do that. But that's not where these people are getting them. There's not an epidemic of illegal opioids being ingested out there. The epidemic is legal opioids that are being eaten. And again, you don't think there's gateway drugs whenever we start medicating a kid whenever they're 5, and then they're 10, and then they're 15. Here's a dependent kid who now thinks that he cannot function properly without taking medicine. So now he thinks anything in his life that needs correcting in some kind of way, no responsibility, no self-accountability whatsoever. Let me go get a pill and I can correct that problem, whether it's a pain, regardless of what it is. They think the pill is the next fix, that the pill is going to fix whatever the problem is, whether it's mental or whether it's physical. And I can tell you guys, we are very anti-medicine in my house. I severed a tendon in my left hand about 13 years ago, and I am so anti-medication that my body was in somewhat of a state of shock. A piece of metal cut right across my hand, and I literally saw the tendon in my hand separate. It looks like a white rubber band is what your tendons look like. And I watched it, pull back. One piece of it went into my thumb, and the other piece came down into my wrist. And my body was it didn't hurt at all. My body was in such a state of shock. Your body immediately starts to react a certain way, and you block out, not intentionally, but you block out that pain. So I did not realize, cut it to the bone. I mean, the metal against the bone is what severed the tendon. And of course, all the muscle in between in your hand. So I go to get my hand operated on that day, and I had the option to either stay the night in the hospital and they could operate on it the next day, or the doctor said, or I can operate on it, you sitting right here in the emergency room if you don't mind. I mean, it's up to you. I'm like, let's fix this thing now. I'm good. So I sat there, and they deadened it. They put some shots in it, but still, I didn't feel that either. Now let's remember, the severing of that tendon also severed a bunch of nerves in my hand. So a lot of the nerves were dead in my hand also. So I didn't feel that as well in some cases. So they cleaned it, and the cleaning kind of hurt a little bit, but not bad. Not as bad as what you would think. A big open wound like that would hurt. They grabbed both of my tendons and pulled it back together, and they sewed it back together like that, and then sewed my hand up. Doctor gives me a prescription for pain medication. Now remember, at this point, I'm still not hurting. My father-in-law had brought me to the hospital. I'm still not in pain. And the doctor gives me the prescription and said, you can go fill this in a little while. I'm like, I don't need those. This doesn't hurt. And he looked at me, he goes, you're going to want to take those later. I said, no, that's all right. Well, I filled the prescription anyway, even though I'm very anti-pill. I filled it anyway, and I don't know why. I don't think it was because I thought I was going to hurt, but I filled it. Thank God I did. I went to bed, had my hand all wrapped up. In fact, it was even in a hard cast because I wanted my hand to stay stable. Went to bed fine. I think I did take Tylenol or something because I thought that it might start to hurt or something, so I took that before I went to bed. About midnight, I sat up in bed. And I remember I shouted at my wife. I was like, did you hit my hand? Because I thought she had hit my hand because it was like, boom, it was throbbing. And she was like, no, I'm sleeping. I mean, it hit me like a ton of bricks, man. Midnight that night, the pain was just all those nerves in my hand, all the muscles, everything that had been cut now woke up. And the shock that my body had put out there, the adrenaline and all that, was gone. And now this was a straight up pain. Man, look, I ate those pills like they were Skittles. I went in there. I mean, I didn't take too many of them. I took what I was supposed to take. But I did take those things for like 4 or 5 days. I got to tell you that they really didn't affect me that much because these were, I don't think they were like a real high dose pain pill or anything like that. So I didn't feel like, I mean, certainly no addiction or anything like that. But my point in all saying all this is that I'm not saying not to take your pills. What I'm saying is to over medicate yourself and to allow a doctor to over medicate you, to me, is not only irresponsible, but it's extremely careless. Because if you don't have the type of personality that will keep you from getting hooked on something, like if you have that kind of peer pressure type mentality that you've always been able to be talked into something, then you need to really monitor yourself and manage what you take based on pills. And if a doctor is just openly giving you free samples and all these other different types of pills and all that, he's getting paid for that. He's got incentives that are tied into what he makes. You know, when these pharmaceutical companies are bringing him all these pills, however many he sells and writes prescriptions for, he's getting a bonus off of that. Don't fool yourself. This is not a conspiracy. This is a known fact. You know, just like if you're in the construction business or you have a construction store, maybe DeWalt gives you a $1,000 bonus for every 500 DeWalt drills that you sell. It's the same. It's strictly business. The problem is that it's hooking people on these pills, and you know, you're dealing with a human being that you're giving these things to. So you're incentivizing a doctor to give somebody something that they may not need, and you're incentivizing them to give them more than they may need. Even if they need this pain pill, you might be prescribing it in a higher dose than what the person actually needs, because you are getting getting a monetary benefit and a bonus from them. That's not ethical, but it happens all day, every day. Again, guys, I don't have a problem with the medical industry because I know some really good people in it. I have a big time problem with a lot of people in the medical industry. There's some screwballs out there. I've dealt with doctors that I'm like, are you kidding me? How did this guy pass? I'm not the smartest guy in the world. I could not have been a doctor, but I have met doctors that I could outwit in a hurry. Guys, look, it is 7:46. Let's do this. I want to go ahead and scroll through. Yep, once again, you guys are blowing it up on the messages. I really wish I could look at these things. I'm going to go through some of you guys. Ryan asked, Paul, did you hear my state, Kentucky, is going to sue Walgreens for the opioid abuse? I did not hear about that. That's interesting. Maybe that's what it takes. Maybe people need to start suing the doctors that are prescribing these opioids and these drugs to these kids that are causing problems. You know, when we have mass shootings or mass killings, it's not a majority of the kids who are medicated. It's literally all of them. It's not some of these kids who are killing other kids in these school shootings. It's not some of them are medicated. It is literally all of them. Every single person who has shot a school up has been over medicated. They've been on medication. And it's not like it's an aspirin. It's mood altering drugs. They're getting these mood altering drugs out there, and these kids are taking them and screwing their brains up, and then they're going out there committing these mass murders. So that's part. To deny that as part of the problem is being completely irresponsible. And I turn this back on the people on the left who want to say everybody from the NRA has blood on their hands. No, you know what? If you're not outraged at the over medication of our kids, and you see these numbers out there that all these medicated kids are shooting up these schools and these malls and all that, then guess what? You have blood on your hands. If you're not outraged at the over medication of our youth, you've got blood on your hands, not me. Let's see, TJ says, what do you think of Deerfield, Illinois banning all semi-auto guns? I think it's bull crap. How could they do that? You know, that's what the problem is. The law and the Constitution is set up to where the Constitution is literally the law of the land. Not if you want it to be, and it's not the law of the land unless a state has a better law. It's not the way it works. The way things are put together and placed in the Constitution, if it is mentioned in the Constitution, like women voting, like African Americans voting, like not the Army not being able to house themselves in your home, like the Second Amendment, like the First Amendment. If it's not, if it's outlined in the Constitution, no state can make a more stringent law based on that. No state can change their own laws, for their state constitution, to restrict or take away any of the rights that the Constitution might be recognizing at that point up from the federal government. So when a place like Deerfield bans AR-15s, they are trying to pass a local law that is superseding the federal law that already outlines the fact that your Second Amendment rights cannot be infringed upon. So that's not constitutional. That's not my opinion. That's the way the Constitution works. You cannot pass a state, parish, county, city, town, village. You cannot pass a local municipal law or a state law that supersedes what's already outlined in the Constitution. That is not constitutional. Anybody in Deerfield should be taking the Deerfield people to court and eventually the Supreme Court, and they will win. Because it's not like it's not a gray area in the Constitution. It's very well spelled out in our Constitution that that's how it works. So Deerfield cannot constitutionally do what they're doing. Their grandstanding is what they're doing. Daniel Waters says, I used to take medication that gave me mood swings. Does that mean I'm going to shoot up a school? No, it doesn't. Because one of the things that I take my time and I actually spell out in my video that's on this is that it's a combination of things. In fact, I painstakingly make the point that not one of those things causes mass shooters. A fatherless home does not create mass shooters. Over-medicating kids alone does not create mass shooters. Bullying somebody does not create mass shooters. Guess what? You go look at all of these mass shooters. Go look at them. They're medicated, they're bullied, and they belong to fatherless homes. I'm not making that up. Go look at it. Very few of these kids had a dad at home. The rest of them, they were all bullied and they were all medicated. All of them. So it is the perfect storm. Now that's not to say still that everybody that's medicated, bullied, and in a fatherless home is going to go shoot the place up. Because statistically there's a lot of them out there and they'd be shooting schools up. But guess what? Don't tell me it's not a root cause. Don't tell me it's not part of the problem, because it is. It's pretty obvious. You know, if you want to draw the comparison, oh yeah, they all involve guns too, so maybe guns are the problem. No, guess what? All these things existed. They were bullied, they were medicated, and they were in a fatherless home before they ever decided to kill anybody. All those things took place. Then they made up their mind, now I want to kill somebody, so now I'm going to go find the tool that I can use to kill people. Just happens to be a gun. Doesn't mean the gun's the problem. It means we need to address those problems before that mind ever gets to the point where he decides that I want to kill somebody. That's the problem. So no, I think you're going to be good, man. I don't think you're going to be killing people up. Let's see here. You're right. TJ also says it's the exact same way about machine guns. It's not constitutional. Yeah, absolutely. There's so much that's... The ATF was created, and the NFA, the way the National Firearms Act works, all that was created to circumvent law and the Constitution and to give some bureaucracy, some little organization, the legal means to limit our Second Amendment rights. That's ridiculous. The NFA needs to be repealed and thrown out the door. That should not exist, guys. Oh, really? Sean Chucker says a judge already blocked the Deerfield law. See? I mean, the judge is not totally stupid. There's some stupid judges out there, but clearly this guy knew that that was unconstitutional, so he blocked it. Now, it will probably get appealed. So once it gets appealed, it'll move on to the next level, possibly. Or somebody with a bigger head and smarter guy will actually rule it out and say, no, we're not going to let that be appealed, and they'll just kick it down the road. So, unbelievable, man. Let's see. Guys, what time is it? 7:54. We got 6 minutes. I'm going to sit here and monitor this for a second to see if I can look at you guys' questions. If you have any questions, I'm going to try to address them in 6 minutes. Sorry, but Yeah, I mean, Roger makes a good point. Roger Kaiser makes a great point. Dad at home equals discipline. But even in a home with a dad, there's a lack of parenting that most of us define as parenting, showing a lack of accountability when the kids need guidance. It's exactly right. You know, you kind of nailed it. The accountability issue is the problem. You know, if you don't have a dad in the home, as long as the mom is still promoting accountability and self accountability and responsibility for your own actions, you know what? That's all I'm asking for. I do think dads are important to be in a home. I just do. I mean, they usually provide some form of discipline, but the accountability thing too. You know, any single parent home is being robbed of one point of authority in that relationship that really needs to be there. I look at my family. It's just me and my wife and my son. You know, you think of times whenever you're really hustling and you feel like you have no more time to do anything else because you're either doing your job, your thing, and dealing with your child, and then you picture that for a very slight moment without your spouse doing what they do. I think about that every now and then, and I think to myself, there ain't no way that I could raise this child by myself. Because what happens is, if you're raising that child by yourself, you got to prioritize things. Some things just aren't going to get done. Well, what's going to get done? We know what's going to get done. You're going to work because you got to pay bills. You got to take the time to pay the bills. You got to go grocery shopping. You got to clean the house. You got to bring your kid to school. All the other stuff you're able to prioritize down that list. And part of it is noticing what your kid is doing whenever they're jacking around on the internet or doing crazy stuff or playing outside doing. I mean, it's almost like you welcome when that child is not around because they're playing with the neighborhood kids. But when they're doing that, you're not usually standing at the window watching what they're doing or listening to what they're doing. It's usually like, oh, let me hurry and get a few things done while they're out doing that. And God knows what they're doing. When you have two parents at home, that other parent can be that helicopter parent that we always joke about. You know, they can see what's going on. They can peek out the window and go, all right, that ain't cool. You know, you can say what you want. You cut the monitoring of your children down by 50% whenever you get rid of one of the parents, when there's a single parent home. It's just a fact. It's a mathematical fact. It's not like I'm making this up or trying to make something of it. It's just a mathematical fact. Now, that's not to say that everybody that grows up in a single parent home is a bad kid. Not at all. I think probably some of you out there, many people that I know grew up in single parent homes. One of my best friends grew up in a single parent home. So, yeah, don't think that I'm putting it like that. But when you don't have a dad in the family or mom, you are robbing that family of 50% of what it needs to function like it probably should. So that's as delicately as I can put that. Yeah. Daniel Water says, I bet you when Trump gets reelected, the left will be jumping off the roofs. I don't know. It blows my mind to even think about the next election because the left melted down, and they're still in meltdown mode after Trump got elected. And it was the funniest thing to watch that they are going to come at him so hard, so hard. Apparently, there's no real dirt on Donald Trump because nobody has been able to pin anything on him. Because you know, if they had something really truly that they could pin on him, that it would be pinned on him right now. So I don't think they really have anything because they would have found it by now. I'm not sure. It's going to be a circus. These midterm elections will probably give us a taste of what it's going to be like. But man, the next presidential election, that's going to be interesting. It's going to be very interesting. Let's see, guys. Um, I mean, I guess I'm going to sign off here in a second. It's 7:59, guys. I'm going to need to sign off here in just a second. Um, Yeah, Daniel Water says just because of Trump sleeping with a porn star, they freaked out. Man, look, I'm not condoning sleeping with a porn star, but if it's consensual sex, look, man, and 12 years ago at that, if I'm going to sit here and pass judgment on every single person who has had consensual sex out of wedlock, there's probably going to be a lot of people that suddenly we don't hang out with and we don't do things with. I'm not saying everybody knows somebody that has done that, but I think a lot of us do. Not saying it's okay. He didn't do it in the Oval Office. Depending on how far right you are, it's unacceptable. But if that's the worst thing he can do, I would take my president 12 years before he became president, sleeping with some trashy skank porn star in a heartbeat over having a president that let tons of people, including a U.S. ambassador, die when they could have saved them on the other side of the world, and watched everything unfold on drone cameras the entire time. I'll take the porn star sex having guy all day long over that horrible person who allowed those other people to die. I'll take that all day. And that's the only example I need to give. I don't need another example outside of that. That's enough for me. That is enough for me. I don't care what anybody says. I'm okay with that. I will be okay with that all day long. Because you know what? Nobody died and nobody got left behind. Nobody got abandoned. Nobody could have had the opportunity to live and see their kids and their parents the next day. Those people were prevented from living the rest of their lives with their families that they had because one person did not want to save them. That's a person that I thank God, and I have literally thanked God that Hillary Clinton never became president of this country. I have prayed about that. Thank you, God, for not letting that woman be our president. I will take a Donald Trump over a Hillary Clinton all day long. And I will challenge anybody that has a problem with that. You show me one good reason that can trump, no pun intended, her leaving those people behind in Benghazi. That is so beyond anything I could ever do. And just let somebody die knowing that they are going to die. And I have the means to save them. That's like standing on the edge of a river and somebody falls through the ice and you're standing there with a rope and you're just twirling that rope above your head. Lassoing trees and stuff like that. Jumping rope with it while that person continues to drown when you could have tossed in that rope and saved their life. It's the same thing, only uglier. So, guys, I'm going to sign out here tonight. I appreciate you guys hanging out with us as always. I mean, I know you got better things to do on a Friday night. It's very flattering me that you guys will hang out and shoot the bull with us. I didn't get to, talk to you guys much about your comments and all that, and I apologize for that. Usually I try to go through that a little bit more. But this AMA stuff, the American Medical Association, kind of got me wound up. Look for that video coming up very soon. I may work on that this weekend. If I do, I'll put it out, and hope you guys will take a look at it. I appreciate you guys subscribing to us. Yes, we are over the 100,000 subscriber mark. I think we're at 102 something thousand subscribers. We're actually over, I guess if you want to point out milestones, our next milestone is 20 million views. We are at over 8 million views, 18 million views on our videos. So we're at 18 million something change in views. So I guess our next big deal is going to be 20 million. So we'll talk about that when we get a little bit closer. Maybe if I could make better videos, I'd get more views, right? So anyway, guys, I really appreciate it. I'll say like I always do, if you're going out tonight, be careful. If you're drinking tonight, let somebody else drive. If you're going to the range this weekend, please be safe. Want to see you guys back here next week and every other time we do this. Always appreciate you guys hanging out with us, and I want to see you guys back. So please be safe, be good, have fun, shoot straight, and take somebody to the range. Take a kid or an old person to the range. Teach them how to shoot. Bring them to the range if they're an older person. Reintroduce them to it. But have some fun with it and be good. You guys have a great weekend. We'll see you.